How can the business community embrace and adapt to the changing landscapes brought on by AI? We're pivoting back to AI now. And giving us a glimpse into the innovation into the workplace by leveraging AI is Tanner Avery, Policy Director of Frontier Institute, Jeff Michael, University of Montana Bureau of Business and Economic Research Director, John Johnson, RemSite co-founder, Nate Hill, Amazon Web Services Principal in Energy Policy, and Chris Koopman, Abundance Institute CEO. Please welcome our next panel.
How about the music today? I mean, really, it's been pretty spot on. I want to thank the Chamber and Governor Jean Forte for putting this all together, our panelists as well, and everyone else who spoke today. I want to start out maybe getting a little sense of the crowd here, and maybe this will tell us where we're at. How many of you use AI once a month? At least once a month. Go ahead and raise your hands. Okay, pretty good. That's overwhelming majority. How about once a week? Okay. How about once a day? Okay, it's about half, quite a bit. Kind of gives you a taste of how people are using AI today, and I think our panelists are gonna get a little bit more into it. Let's go ahead and just dive in. Jeff, your team has started studying the impact of AI on Montana's economy. What kind of early trends are we seeing maybe in terms of job creation, increased productivity, or sector-specific growth?
Thanks, Tanner. So there's basically three ways that this AI is going to affect job growth and the economy in Montana. The first two we've kind of talked about a lot earlier today. Energy development, right? The state is well positioned to supply the energy that this change needs. The second, is data centers, right? So we know that data center projects are coming, proposed all around the country and also here in Montana. And then the third is in the workplace. How are businesses across all industries going to use AI to increase their productivity and develop new products? Now those first two, this panel is about the last one, so I'll just only briefly mention the first two. And I love to talk about the first two. As economists, they're easier to measure, right? I can count these things. These are specific projects, right? Somebody is gonna build transmission or build energy. They're gonna build a data center. There's capital investment. I can estimate the job creation from that and the ongoing things that are going on. So I'm not going to talk about those numbers, but one point I will make about it is sort of geography. When we're tracking the state's jobs, one thing that's notable about these sorts of developments that we're seeing in Montana is where they're occurring, right? So we're seeing lots of them in eastern Montana. Early data center announcements are in Butte and Great Falls. These are communities that actually haven't added as many jobs as other parts of the state, haven't grown quite as fast as the rest of the state. And so the growth that we're seeing in energy and data centers that is AI driven has important impact on Montana geographically. Now the third component is how is it going to affect workforce? How is it going to affect all industries? And you know, here it's great to be part of such a optimistic event, right? Everything's great in Montana, and it is. But Montana does have some problems, right? And workforce is one of them. And some of this is due to being a rural state. Some of this is due to our economic success. In some ways, we're fortunate that Montana has 1.6 job openings for every worker available right now. That creates a big challenge for companies and startups that are trying to grow their business. This is a case where, in the other two, where Montana is a solution to the growth of AI nationally, this is an area where AI could be a solution to some of Montana's challenges. And you know, you can tell all these hands are going up. People have used AI in different ways. Businesses are experimenting with it in different ways. It's interesting how this technology can affect productivity in just about every sector. And productivity is the key to income. How are we going to grow incomes? We have to grow productivity. The challenge, you know, for me as an economist likes to count things, it's really hard to count. It's hard for me to see inside your business how you're deploying it. I'm going to have to wait a while. It's hard for me to model, but what I want to see is, are you producing more with fewer labor inputs? And that's productivity. And that is what AI has the potential to help in Montana. And I think we're going to hear some great illustrations of that here today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate that. John, your startup's actually using AI to manage water resources. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how Montana's strong entrepreneurial ecosystem made it easier to create and deploy your systems?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a fairly new startup, and when we decided what it was we wanted to build, what we needed to build, we started looking for people to build that. And it wasn't that they didn't exist in Montana. They're absolutely here, but they have wonderful jobs, and they're expensive to poach. And so for us, AI was alternative. Able to digest a 1,000-page data sheet in a couple minutes and spit out a low-level framework for a low-level driver that we can implement into our firmware package and stuff for the products we produce was just a game changer. And we're kind of want to tell a whole full circle story of AI, because then we're also using or leveraging AI, especially as large language models, to be able to augment the workflows that a lot of the district managers that we're serving have to go through day to day. And so we're making their operation more efficient in leveraging that. And then the final phase that we're hoping to come back to is having insights, AI-driven insights that allow regulatory bodies or other management agencies to be able to understand water resources and what do we have available for allocation of microhydro or other power generation that we have to use water in, and or AI data centers and their needs. So that's kind of the full circle that Rimsight's taking with AI.
It's cool to see a Montana company really innovating like that. Nate, AWS is investing heavily in data center infrastructure. Given Montana's energy profile, our data center potential, and our policy environment, how do these factors align with your long-term investment strategy?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for having us. Thanks to the Chamber. Thanks to the Governor for co-hosting, having us here. This is a fantastic summit. I'm actually here to tell you how to use AI to optimize your holiday shopping on Amazon. So I thought I would go through that, but no, I'm just joking. You're right. AI, we heard a lot about demand forecasts earlier. And what I often like to tell audiences is, large demand forecasts, what's behind the demand forecast? It's customers, it's businesses, it's startups, it's all sizes. What's driving these forecasts is customers coming to hyperscalers and other tech companies looking to optimize, be more efficient, be more productive, and find out how they can use machine learning, artificial intelligence, or even growth in traditional data center services. We're still seeing growth in our business. If you're a customer, if you watch Netflix, you're an AWS customer. If you're on Zoom, if you're doing secure banking transactions or trading on the NASDAQ, you're using a scalable solution on AI. So thank you for that if you are doing all those things. And in order to meet that demand, we have to invest in digital infrastructure. And I think what I heard earlier aligns with a lot of what we're seeing, is that power infrastructure capacity is still a challenge. We're doing our best to innovate around it, but we're doing it to serve those customers, those enterprise customers that are coming to us wanting these solutions. And I think places like Montana have a lot of structural advantages that you heard at the last keynote: northern latitude, weather, rich in resources. And I think, but aside from that, it's just the competitive environment, the economic development mindset. I think those are things we look for, is places that are willing to host and want to be a part of solving these problems and looking to invest in infrastructure to host these communities. And we want to be a good community partner when we do that, when we go into places. And what that brings is investment. So, we've, in order to serve our customers in the last, let's call it 18 months, we've announced some of the largest economic development projects in a lot of states around the country. So we did an announcement in Mississippi for $10 billion, Indiana for $10 billion. Those were the largest economic development projects in those states so far in their history. But we've done similar announcements in North Carolina, Pennsylvania. So, and what I'll say on top of that is that I think we're still early in the curve. Going back to my first comment, is that we still need to serve a lot of customers that are coming to us looking for solutions, and my peers in the industry. So I think this demand is going to keep going because it's going to touch every sector, and there's going to be a lot of investment and economic development opportunities associated with it.
Thank you, Nate. Chris, Montana has prioritized regulatory flexibility, something I really appreciate, especially on the tech front. How does this make Montana stand out as a destination for innovators?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the regulatory approach that Montana has taken to AI on two fronts. On the software side, and then on the hardware side, the tech side, the actual building of the infrastructure, as you've heard a lot about today. On the software side, we're sort of in this very unique moment where there's a multitude of approaches that have been proposed across the country. California, Colorado, New York have done very predictable things in terms of how they are approaching the way that innovators and businesses can build and deploy their AI systems. On the other side, Montana has taken a starkly different approach that I think will perhaps not just set a trend across the country, but may be a pivotal moment in shaping how AI regulation continues to take shape across America. And this is the Right to Compute Act. So Montana passed the Right to Compute Act earlier this year, which enshrined computational resources as, in essence, free expression. So for those of you who don't know, and many of you probably do, AI is just math. It's advanced statistics. You may think you're chatting with a thinking machine, but you're really just, you're talking and it's doing math. It's predicting the right response based on a massive amount of data that it's been trained on, and it's doing something like reasoning, but it's just math. And we're at a moment now in America where we're having very real conversations about public policies shaping how people do math, and how they express themselves, which is what really the AI systems are sort of a form of. The Right to Compute Act does the exact opposite than this. It says that this is a right enshrined in free expression in the Utah Constitution, and it does something important, and it says any future bills, legislation from the state, will be given strict scrutiny by the courts. The highest level of scrutiny will be given to these laws because it's free expression, and it will be treated as speech. This is really akin to the early internet regulatory moment where nations, not states, right now this is, California, Colorado, Montana, New York, Virginia are sort of competing over regulatory regimes. In the early 1990s, it was Europe and the United States, in continents, nations, the European Union versus the United States in terms of shaping the regulatory environment. Europe took a very strong regulatory approach, a risk aversion approach, and the United States took a very deliberate, light touch regulatory approach. It sent a strong message to the world, right? For the next 30 some odd years, America was the home for almost all of high-tech innovation, still remains the world's leader because of that. Montana is setting the exact same tone today. Now that's on the IT side, and you're seeing this. There are VCs, there's innovators that are now contemplating Montana as a place to come. Now the other part of this is the infrastructure, right? Where do we put these data centers? We've heard a lot of talk about this and the energy and the infrastructure, but something has happened very interesting over the last 14 days that I think is really something for Montana to consider, and that's as these massive data center developments are being announced across the country, announcing them is the easy part, building them is the hard part. And they're being announced, and in the last 2 weeks, Wisconsin and Indiana have both seen massive developments canceled, reconsidered. The companies themselves are saying, you haven't done enough to make a good business climate for us to build in. Now the permitting's an issue, local control's an issue, the infrastructure's an issue, and we're gonna go somewhere else. So for states like Montana who have a builder's mentality, there's a really strong opportunity to take advantage of the opportunities created by a whole lot of other states that are unwilling to do the hard work that Montana's demonstrated it can do. Take housing, take all these other areas where Montana has demonstrated the state has an interest and an ability to build. And this is no different and could be a tremendous opportunity for the state.
Thank you, Chris. This is a question for the whole panel, so we'll start here and move the way down. How are Montana students, workers, and institutions uniquely positioned to adapt to AI-driven changes in the workplace?
Uniquely positioned, I think they're uniquely positioned to benefit. I don't know if they're, something particularly unique about a worker in Montana versus somewhere else, but I think, communities like we have here, we talk about it being an entrepreneurial state and a small business state. The AI technologies have a lot of potential to help those businesses succeed and grow and overcome some of those challenges. Same thing with students, often being educated in smaller settings. AI has the ability to sort of tailor lessons and help meet students where they are, and that's a need that's important in smaller communities where the educational environment's a little bit different. So, I think these technologies have the potential to really help move Montana forward.
And I guess I'll address the worker side first. And Montana, in my opinion, has been rooted in a lot of blue collar jobs. Heck, out here, it's practically a Wrangler area commercial. So I think, AI is going to augment those, but we're far from them getting displaced in some way. I think we get to potentially artificial superintelligence. There might be some concerns there about, the worker getting displaced in Montana, but right now I think the worker is just going to get helped by the AI revolution. As far as like students and the institutions go, looking at programs like the Montana Photonics and Quantum Alliance and their interface with Dr. Joe Shaw and his program and how that gets fed by undergrads and stuff. Like, I almost see Montana as being a creator of novel AI rather than necessarily getting affected or displaced by the onset of that.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think there are opportunities for various types of students. So your vocational students, this is a large source of work in pipe fitting, plumbing, electricians. They're in sore demand all over to build data centers, and I think students with those skills are going to have a long runway to grow and to build and have work in that space. And then when it comes to students in more high tech, maybe more advanced engineering, I think the ability to work, like to your point, alongside advanced robotics to augment a job, to help a job, and to just be more efficient is going to be incredible. And I think the students who embrace those technologies know how to fix them, know how to use them, know how to optimize them. I think we're going to be well positioned to succeed in the future. Our facilities, like on our operations side, that we're expanding here in Montana, have used robotics for a long time, and now they're just getting more sophisticated with AI built into those robotics that are helping a lot of our folks in those facilities sort of move volumes quicker, not have to lift as much, do as much of those repetitive motions. So it's just I think an ability to augment the work and be more efficient and be more productive in the long run in a lot of different for a lot of different types of students.
Yeah, and I would say first that AI is not an industry, right? Like, no one's going to go into AI necessarily as an industry defined as you would in a traditional sense, but AI is a general purpose technology that is touching all sorts of other industries. And I think that's something unique about not just Montana. I'm not a Montanan. I live several hours south on the Utah-Idaho border, so I'm a close neighbor. But I think something unique about the university systems in Montana and Wyoming and Idaho and Utah that are quite they're quite resilient, I think, to the AI moment than maybe some others, because they haven't overinvested in computer science in some of the hot programs of the early and mid 2000s, which are now the first ones being disrupted. You look at the first jobs being disrupted by AI are coders. right? Like the people who built the things are losing their jobs to the things they've built. And so I think the industries that are going to take the most advantage of AI are the industries that can figure out how to deploy them effectively within industries to become more productive and to see the gains from technology. And so in that case, I think the fact that Montana and the Mountain West as a whole hasn't overinvested in trying to become, quote, a tech hub, but has remained pretty diversified in its approach to education, I think is way better than you look across the country at other schools that are going to be feeling already university systems are seeing a crunch, but in this case I think that the higher ed systems in the Mountain West are going to hang tough just fine through this moment.
Thank you. Let's look at 10 years from now. What role do you see AI playing in shaping Montana's economy and workforce, and why is Montana well positioned to lead in this space? We'll start over here and head back down that way.
10 years from now, wow. I mean, that's a long way to look into the
telling the
future.
future.
Yep, all right, I wasn't expecting that question, yeah. That's further than I usually look, 10 years from now. Yeah, so, gosh, I think there's a huge amount of uncertainty here, right? I mean, how are people going to embrace this technology and make use of it? Some businesses aren't, right? And those are the ones that probably won't be here in 10 years. If you're not going to learn how to take advantage of this to be competitive and productive, you may not be around in 10 years. Others are going to embrace it. In Montana, like many places, right? I mean, people are working. Healthcare is one of our biggest sectors. Huge applications of AI there. You think about it. People talking about it as assistant, right? I mean, you go in and you visit a healthcare provider, and that healthcare provider basically has an AI partner right there with them, listening the whole time, helping, checking, providing ideas so that you get a better outcome and they are more productive. And this can be replicated sort of field after field. And I think as a result, we're going to see a more productive and prosperous state.
Yeah, I think starting with defining what we think of as an economy in 10 years from now. And if we think of ourselves as a leader, as an energy export state, we can kind of also define what workforce we're going to need for that. I had a little bit of background. I was up in Prudhoe Bay running well intervention for a few years. Have stood up 17 of the largest wind turbines that the United States imports rather, and I've been on some large solar projects. When I think about AI in those applications and how AI can augment those and augment our workforce for the next 10 years, there's huge applications in exploration and management of even novel technologies like Robert Friedman or Ross Beatty, I think Quace down out of Houston is doing geothermal exploration, deep geothermal, 20 kilometers below the surface, and essentially building big radiators down there that can extract supercritical steam and power huge turbines out of that. And so when we think about AI on those technologies and how that works with the workforce and the workforce we need to build out those systems, I think there's a wonderful outlook for AI in 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, what makes me excited is a lot of the utilities and energy providers that we see coming to AWS for solutions on their system, and I think we're just scratching the surface because I like I said earlier, and others have said on this panel, like it has the potential to transform almost every industry in some way. So name your industry, it could have an incredible impact and lay the groundwork for new startups that are moving here and finding a way to really scale and grow and sell their products to the rest of the world. But just going back, some of the excitement I see in some of our customer stories around utility maintenance, preventative maintenance on the system, to using AI-enabled cameras to spot wildfire early, to help do preventative shutoffs in some ways, to reduce wildfire risk. That's one example. We see some examples down in the south, kind of with Southwest Power Pool on using AI to do cluster studies much faster and sort of at the end of the day speed up the interconnection queue. And so we all know there's a giant backlog around the country of projects trying to get onto the grid. And so AI could be an enabler for some of these grid operators to go through the process they need to go to speed up interconnection. That's another example. I've heard, grid enhancing technologies could open capacity. We heard that earlier on the panel. If those scale well and you need real-time, you need to take in real-time information, make real-time decisions as a grid operator, you're probably going to use a scalable AI or machine learning solution to get the most out of those technologies. So I think the sky's the limit in a lot of these, but I get really excited about sort of what I'm seeing in some of the early energy applications.
Yeah, so maybe I'll make 3 observations, and they'll get more abstract. But the first one is sort of ground. I have 7 kids, 10 and under. I have 7 children. So like the next 10 years of what the world looks like matters a lot. But I think about sort of education for them, and even seeing the applications for education today and sort of 18, 24 months into real, actual, ChatGPT-like competitors that are bringing these things. And I think to myself, for each one of my kids, my youngest is 3 months old, the idea of having a personal tutor always on that never forgets anything that they've ever told them, never gets tired, never gets annoyed, never has a bad day, right? Can go down any rabbit hole they want to go down and continue to help them learn at their own pace without being like, this is the 15th time we've went over this problem. How have you not gotten it yet? This for me is, I think about my own educational journey. Maybe you can all think about your own, and just what an unbelievable tool something like that, having that in your pocket is like. I think the next 10 years in terms of how our children learn and how they sort of discover the world in a wildly different way than we did, I think has tremendous potential. That's the first thing. The second thing, a little more abstract, is I think we'll actually see, I think we've heard some comments, and there's a broader conversation about concentration in the tech sector, that there might be a winners take all, market. There might end up with 2 or 3 players. That may or may not be the case, but what I do think is that AI is going to fuel the growth in small businesses, because it's never become easier to run a small business with all of this power in your pocket. And here's what I mean. All that power may be concentrated in 1, 2, or 3 companies who are fighting like crazy and spending trillions of dollars to put each other out of business. We as consumers are benefiting from that. In the democratization of knowledge, you think, and this will take me to my third point, which is I think it will make Montana, and where I live, kids typically grew up and then went somewhere else to go have a career. And then maybe they came back one day, but for the most part, they left. It's never become easier to do business with people that you aren't near. 50, 60, 75 years ago, if you wanted to start a business, you needed expertise, you needed support, you needed advice, you would have to go seek that out. This is why economists call this the economies of agglomeration. It's a really complex term for there's a economic benefit for businesses being near each other. I think AI breaks that and makes it way easier than ever before. I think about myself. I run a nonprofit, a small nonprofit with 12 employees, but it's a small business at the end of the day. In the use cases that we're coming up with to save money every day, and we're just firing contractors, human contractors left and right. I feel bad for them, but we're saving money, a lot of money that we were spending, and realizing that for $50, $75, $100, we're now performing tasks that we were paying $5,000 to $7,000 a month for. I think you'll see a lot more people start small businesses because it becomes really cheap to refine, test, iterate your idea, get really quick. Do I need to call a lawyer? No. Okay, well then I'm good for now until I have the question again, and then maybe I do. And it makes a place like Montana become really, really attractive, because now you don't have to live near others. And the growth in AI is going to be the growth in the tech sector. Remember, most of these companies aren't just making AI, they're making a lot of things. So all of this rising tide, I think, is going to create an information economy that you know, in 10 years, we'll look back at the 90s and be like, how did we even do things?
My kids think I drive a van, so
Well, thank you, gentlemen. This has been very interesting. Hopefully everyone got something out of this as well. That's our last question for this panel, but let's give our panelists a big round of applause, please. Thank you.